Hello and welcome to episode 355 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. I'm Vince Hunt, and joining me as always is the creator of the webcomic Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
Our very own Gigantosaurus, it's Mr. Tony Esmond.
Hello.
And this week, we're joined by one of our favourite people. Brilliant artist and creator of things like Ghosts and Things, Petrichor, The Intercostal, Bones in the Sea, and more that will split your brain and make you see art in a whole new way. And also, he's no stranger to the sort of humour that we peddle on a weekly basis. Welcome to the show again, Gareth Hopkins.
Hello, everyone.
Such...
We've been all subdued. We've just been talking about boobs and knobs and stuff, and now we've been all subdued.
Yeah. I can't remember the last time you've been on the show proper. I know, obviously, you've been on Drink and Draws, etc.
Yeah.
But welcome back.
I think last time was to talk about covers.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, it's
laid into an old X-Force cover, which I still think about now.
Not a day goes by.
Yeah.
I love that expression on Twitter.
Thank you for joining us again, Gareth. And you have been a busy bee since the last time.
Yes,
we've seen you, and certainly anyone who follows Gareth on the internets, however you follow him, will know that he's just churning out artwork and more creativity that you can shake a stick at. So we're going to get into that, as well as talking a bit more about Patreon, having a bit of a Patreon catch up. Seeing as some of us have had one, some of us currently have one, and one of us started one fairly recently. So
yes.
So this
one of us finished one.
This could be actually informative. Can you imagine that?
Don't make these promises.
This show, I mean, it's an empty promise. I make nothing but empty promises. But I can promise one thing.
Oh no.
That Comic House still sponsor the show. I can make promises because they do.
I've been speaking to Pete this weekend. It's been very helpful. I'd like to thank him for my annoyingness.
Yeah.
Being so patient.
Annoyingness. Is that a word?
I don't know.
It is now.
He's a writer. Yes, Comic House sponsors this show, the indie comic marketplace with a difference, because they love indie comics just as much as you and I. There's a huge selection of titles on the database. If you self-publish yourself, you can list your book on there. There's another avenue to start selling your work online, etc. But they also have an amazing app, which I used a lot recently, and my recommend for this, so stay tuned for the end of it later on the show, because I read this on Comic House and thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I own that book you've read, and it's really good. Yeah,
do you know what? I finished reading it and thought, I need to get a print copy of this now.
Yeah.
Such is the power of digital comics, you see. Well, for me personally. But the Comic House app is basically on Netflix for comics subscription service. Only £3 a month. You get access to an enormous library of digital indie comics. It's being added to all the time. Dan, I believe they have stuff from many, many folks, don't they? What kind of folks are there?
I was going to highlight the four of us, what titles we've got in there. So, Gareth, what titles do you have on Comic House?
I've got a few. I think a lot of the explosive Sweet Freezer Razor stuff is on there. So Bones of the Sea, Nothing, and Moon Duke's on there. And I think Moon Duke is the one that I'd like people to read more, because it's the hardest one to sell. I can sort of explain what the other ones are, but Moon Duke is impossible to explain. So
moonduke.com.
I love your... You got to sing it, Tony, if you can say it. Now, I love your titles, Gareth, and when we finish this sponsorship ad,
particularly good one at the moment.
We are going to get into this, so we'll start off there. But yes, there are. It's if you just put your stuff on there if you're a creator, because it's a great avenue to like.
We've collaborated on a comic that's on Comic House, Gareth. We're in Sliced Quarterly. I reworded one of your pages. Do you remember? Years ago.
Yeah, I remember.
That was fun.
Tony, you've just recently uploaded a title.
I've just put a couple of Hurt comics up there. Yeah, Atomic Hercules 2 and Atomic Hercules Goes Commando are live as of this weekend, which is why I had to speak to Pete all the time over the weekend.
Yeah. So this week is a particularly good week.
Normal people can do this, by the way. You know, a normal person with an average intelligence can put a comic on their edges. I can't.
But they are available to help whenever you need it.
Yeah.
So now it seems like the perfect week to check out Comic House. So go to comichouse.com, find out more about the app. There's a 14-day free trial. And so join up and get stuck into the great world of indie comics that we talk about every week. And there's stuff from all over the world on there as well. It's not just UK centric. There's a lot of UK creators on there, but there's people from the States.
Adam West.
Yeah, it's people from all. Adam West
Is
is on
Jake
there.
Cardigan on there?
Tech World.
Yeah.
Tech World Chronicles.
Yeah,
Jake Cardigan.
yeah.
Jake Cardigan.
Does anyone else want to say? Does anyone else want to say Jake Cardigan?
Jay Cardigan.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
There
you.
you go. There you go. And what a brilliant way to end the sponsorship ad for comichouse.com.
It was like we caught him unaware. He was drinking a cup of tea or something, or had his mic off and was talking to his missus.
I saw someone throwing a bit of shade at that Blue Water. Is it Blue Water or Blue Wave Comics?
Yeah, I think they've been both, haven't they?
Oh, okay. Yeah, someone was throwing a bit of shade their way on
Really? What's wrong with people?
on the internet.
Someone throwing shade on the internet. I
What, a company that
refuse
just
to believe it.
picks on famous people and makes shit comics about them. I can't believe that.
They do low more than that, though, Tony. They make other comics. I'm not going to start insulting them because they put their comics on Comic House.
I've reviewed some of their ones. I reviewed the one about Stormy Daniels. It's pretty good, actually.
Oh, there you go.
Remember that one?
We got balance in there. So
I suppose
You
they voted
say
for that,
remember
haven't
that one. I didn't read it. I remember you talking about it.
Yeah. I suppose they'd have to pull that one now because it's all. She lost at court, didn't she, Stormy Daniels?
Oh,
I researched her quite heavily in the review for that one.
I bet.
I bet.
Sure.
Yeah. And then no.
Researched it for 3 or 4 minute bursts.
Yeah.
Every evening,
Every
just before I took a shower.
Uttering red faced Stormy Daniels.
Every time I had half a lager, sat on the couch on my own at home.
Yeah. Every
I know
time
what I need to do. I need to stand up and do some research.
every moment was dangerous. He listens to the weather, goes, it looks like we're going to have a stormy weekend. Oh!
Hang on. Do you want a Jack Daniels?
Oh, God! This is a highbrow show.
Every week.
And thankfully, Gareth has already heard lots of our shit talking anyway, so he's not running for the hills. You're still there, aren't you, Gareth? Fuck, we lost another one. We lost another one. Shit. But let's not mess around. Let's talk about your work to kick us off. I was just speaking about the titles for your work, and I mean, because the way you just casually mention it, like an artist does. Because you just Bones in the Sea, Moon Puke, and the ears crop up like pud. Was that Moon Puke?
Yeah.
How do you?
You got to start us off by telling us the new one because that's my favourite stuff.
Jet Wash Trampoline.
I absolutely love that title.
Yeah.
It's genius.
And that's the Slack group's fault. I can't remember what we were talking about, but I was just like, instead of doing this, I'm going to jet wash the trampoline, and then quickly added on that's not a euphemism. That I'm not off to have a wank. I'm literally going to go and jet wash my trampoline, and then just that joke stuck in my brain for the rest of the afternoon. And also, my son had been doing homework on Renaissance artwork, and so my head was full of Renaissance paintings, and I was just the two just stuck together, and then that was it. That was the title of whatever I was going to do next.
Genius.
Yeah, that's great. What a great, yeah.
And you can see this. You can see this cover that he's talking about, by heading to your Patreon, seeing all this. But back to the titles. So obviously that one you're blaming someone else, but where do you come up with some of the titles for your? I mean, because there is we've always said it. There's a real poetry to your work. I think Ghosts in Things is the most standard title you've ever had.
Yeah. And that was an easy one to come up with because I'd drawn a picture of a ghost in a bucket, and I was like, oh, I'll just do loads of ghosts and things, and that was the title. So
he's good. Yeah.
And then so that Ghosts and Things was just a stupid side project during lockdown that me and my daughter got carried away with. And then I sort of mentioned, oh, we'll have enough for a book soon. And she was like, right, let's make a book then. And then I ended up spending weeks and weeks redrawing all the crappy little zine drawings we'd done and making them and came up with new ideas. And now we've got a book of it, which
it's
all
great,
of my
man.
family
I own a copy. It's very good.
about.
Yeah, I need to get my hands on this because I've loved seeing it. Just the style of those ghosts is amazing. So
it's almost become a little.
We're talking about dinner and just get explained because we're just like it happens every now and again at dinner. Everyone will just like start throwing ideas of ghosts and things at us, and then me and my daughter will have to explain why, like because if there's a lot of drawing in the picture, the joke is that it wasn't worth doing all that drawing for. So Ghost in the Sausage Factory, it wasn't worth drawing a ghost in the sausage factory for the amount of effort I had to do, and that's the joke. And same with Ghosts in the Car Park. Like I'd spent so long drawing that car park and it wasn't worth it, and that's the joke. But then when my wife was like, oh, do Ghosts in the Science Museum, I'm like, no, I'm definitely not drawing the Ghost in the Science Museum. So it's a fun like family thing to do, and it's relatively it's easy to explain, which makes a change from everything else I do because I can just say it's drawing the ghosts and things. And then
who comes up with the majority of ghosts and things? Is it you or Martha?
It's the two of us. So between the two of us, we came up with. Bill came up with two ideas. No, he came up with the same idea twice, which was.
There's Bill's credited as well on it, isn't he?
Yeah.
He is, yeah. So he did Ghost in a Hat and Ghost in a Hat. So one's a ghost wearing a hat, and one's a ghost in a hat that's been turned upside down. And then he did those two.
That's nice because then he gets commission for
like
individuals rather than just one idea. That's great.
Yeah. So when he heard that there was like we might turn it into a book, and if we turned it into a book, there might be money involved. He was like, he sort of walked into the office like, I need to do some of this now. So he took two pieces of paper, came back 10 minutes later with these two ghosts, and he was like, right, that's mine. And then when you sell them, I want my money. So he gets a generous 2% of every sale we make.
It's better than you get a 2000 AD, apparently. That's a joke.
So he, but I don't think he'd anticipated how little money that'd be. And then also because we sold a few copies, so Martha's got a bit of extra cash now. And then she's like, she'll just go into a shop and go, "Oh, I fancy this using my royalties." And he's just like, "I've got no money. How?" And then so he's in the planning phase of his first novel just so that he can print.
Got your kids into capitalism. Early doors. Excellent.
Nice.
That's great, man. That's really good.
Yeah.
But back to the titles. Like obviously that's a standard one. Do you have the title first and then the art grows around it, or do you have like a collection of art and then the name is born from that?
It sort of depends on the project. So Bones of the Sea, I think the title came like early on as I was writing it, because I knew that Bones of the Sea is weird because I'd drawn it all first, and then I wasn't going to do anything with it. I was just going to put it in a cupboard and leave it because I didn't know what to do with it. And then I think I had a con coming up, so I was just like, I'll write something with it. And then the drawings looked like something that was dead under the sea. So then that's how I got the title Bones of the Sea, and that's how I came up. So Bones of the Sea has two things happening. One is like autobiographical, like little things about my life. And then the other is just like descriptions of total desolation, absolute death. It's not even depressing because you can't be depressed about something that's that dead. And it's like the interplay between those two things. So that was an easy one. Thunders, which Dan reviewed, and I think Tony reviewed it as well a little while ago.
Okay. I
don't know where the title for that came from. It might have been when I did the cover, because it's about alien abduction, and the word thunder, there's no thunder in the story anywhere. There's no actual, it doesn't reference it at all. It's just like a cool name to call a comic.
God, yeah.
And then I'd sort of as I've been working on it, I'd gone for no, wait, hang on. I'm trying to remember how I made it. I think I'd taken a picture while I was stood in the cornfield of the moon, and then I was like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if there's a UFO behind the moon? And that's where the rest of the comic sort of rolled out from. Oh no, I know what it's called, Thunders. Sorry,
too much LSD, Gareth. There's something.
It's called Thunders because it uses panel layouts from a copy of Thunderstrike I had on my desk.
That's right. No, I remember this now. Yeah.
I'd totally forgotten about that until the most stupid thing about that is that I'd bought it, but I thought it was a Juggernaut comic because Juggernaut was the only thing on the cover. I'd never heard of Thunderstrike before.
Yeah.
And then I read it as mostly about like a guy with a ponytail trying to get his kid to school. Yeah,
it was blue collar worker Thor, wasn't it? Basically, that
classic Thunderstrike.
Yeah.
I can't remember anything about that comic.
I quite like it. It's Run Friends, wasn't it? Is that right? A lot of it.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it was so that's why it's called Thunders. Yeah.
But isn't the purpose of a lot of your books to be sort of non sequitur, almost like, I don't know, absurdist, strings of language sometimes, aren't they?
More and more, it's just like that. I'll use the idea when it comes, and it's not necessarily. I don't sit and work at an idea. I'll just get an idea, put it to one side, and then use it when it's useful.
Gotcha. Yeah,
and Moon Puke, that has. I don't know what the title. The title doesn't describe the book. Doesn't describe the tone of the book. It's got nothing to do with the plot. It's just like a nice pairing of words that I came up with one day, and. That came from. Do you remember? You might remember Found Forest Floor, which I made with Eric.
One of my favourites, man. I really like that. Yeah.
Yeah, looking back, that's one of my favourite things I've done. But it was just like a random pair of words that he'd put in one of his like passages of text. I just pulled it out of there and then made a comic about a man who's so isolated he starts astrally projecting across car parks.
I remember chatting to you once and I said, what you got next? And you said to me, I'm waiting till I get a little bit more depressed. Although you did write quite an interesting string of words on a you did like a bookmark for me, and it's a picture of a ghost and it says Tony, and then it says, I don't know if this is absurdist, just made up. It says, I was going to draw a cock and balls on this ghost, but I chickened out. That's what you've written on that.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Well, because then you can imagine the cock and balls, and I don't have to draw it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the titles of books just sort of like come out of just whatever I'm working on at the time. Like the one that I'm doing for DUI at the moment, the working title is Levitating Warbike, because I had a dream in which my wife had made me a levitating warbike and told me to take it on my next secret mission, and I refused because it would be quicker to walk. So
what do you eat before you go to bed?
Yeah, this is LSD, I believe, is the
that was like I don't sleep enough to dream often, which is probably my problem. But one night I just had like this solid pack of 3 or 4 dreams, and I wrote them all down before I'd woken up. But I was still at the top of the stairs. My wife had thought I was having a bit of a moment. I think she walked out of the bedroom. I was just stood at the top of the stairs, staring into my phone. So Levitating Warbike is one of the ideas that I had in a dream. as 1960s, like mental that sounds. Yeah.
I'm scared of your wife now.
Why?
Right.
Well,
I mean, I'm scared of her, but I know why.
Yeah.
So, I mean, some of her appearances on the Alpha Pod flight were some of my favourite episodes.
Yeah.
When you were talking about Alpha Flight with her.
Oh, she's a nightmare. She doesn't remember any of it. She doesn't remember anything she spoke about.
That's what we're like.
Any of those
That's
what we're like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very idiosyncratic and individual approach you've got towards comics, Gareth. How did you arrive there with this style? So, did you want to describe, for people that haven't listened to you on here before or heard you describe your comics, how would you describe them? That's difficult.
I think
know, but
the abstract is the one word which sort of helps.
Yeah.
So the abstract comics, and so if you've got an idea of abstract art in your mind, that's sort of like where they are. And then over the last 10 years or so, I've just played with different ways of creating abstract art. And so when I started, it was I was just like drawing a lot without a lot of intention. And then as I was doing that, I sort of felt the need to pay my dues. So a lot of my work was based around existing comics. So like I redrew my first copy of 2000 AD. I redrew loads of existing comics, and that's sort of what I did for a few years, just like.
But when you say redraw, you're not doing
reinterpret. I suppose.
Yeah. So what I was like meticulously relaying out the panel layouts, and then sort of sketching out the shapes within them, and then reinterpreting those shapes to try and say something about the original comics. And so that I did that for a long time, and then somebody introduced me at a con as the guy who redraws other people's comics, and I was like, I don't want to be that person.
No.
That sounds like something like Star Jaws or something like that. It's a whole different aesthetic, isn't it? Yeah.
I've never viewed you like that.
No. Well, but isn't all art the? I mean, Francis Bacon says all art is the interpretation of one thing into another. Which is kind of what you're doing. Now, there's that level to it, I suppose.
Yeah. And then over time, I think I've just changed that. So whereas I was drawing very carefully before, now I'm a lot more loose. And so I'm sort of at the point now, especially with the Sluice, which is my Patreon project, where I sort of try and let the pages draw themselves a little bit. I just sort of create. It sounds really stupid and wanky, but I put in the sort of the conditions for the materials to do what they want. So I'll intentionally draw something, knowing that when I stick loads of water on it, it will change. And then if I can drop paint into that water as it dries, and it'll do unexpected things. And then sometimes it looks good enough, and I'll just leave it. And other times it looks terrible, and I'll just carry on working at it until it looks okay. But at the same time, it's like it's always got to function as a comic. And one of the things I've done on my Patreon is if it looks good enough to not mess with anymore, but isn't really a comic, then I'll just like whack some captions on there to pretend it's a splash page, and then move on.
Do you purposely counterpoint the language to the image sometimes as well? Do you try and do that sometimes with the?
Yeah. So I like the way that I like my comics to work is that there is friction between different elements of the comic. So either the text clashes with the image, or the interior clashes with the title or the cover. And I like that sort of separation between when things don't work the way that they're supposed to. And I think I enjoy doing it because nobody else is doing it very much.
Yeah.
And it's sort of almost my sense of humor now is just to do things knowing that people won't like them.
You and me both, my friend. Yeah. Because some of it is almost domestic every day, isn't it? Okay, you write about taking the bins out and sitting in your car and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think because it's sort of a conscious decision to do that sort of stuff, because then when you do something weirder, it feels weirder.
Yeah.
So if I only did like Terrapin Wings puking on drums out in the deck, and if that was the only thing that I did over and over,
you'd be the Mighty Boosh, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas and also the same thing, and so putting like really meticulously noted family stuff down, not meticulously, but finding the kernel of an experience and just capturing that sort of again causes that friction between the normal stuff I do and then the weirder stuff. And then what the Patreon that I've been doing allows me to do is to put some of the normal stuff in the. So what I do is I put a page up every day and then detail the process that I went through to get to that page. And sometimes that process is just having a really awkward interaction with my family, or trying to encourage my son to do his homework, and all that stuff goes in there as a counterpoint to the image. So the two is, although the comic doesn't know that the notes are happening, the notes are there to sort of give extra life to the page.
Okay. Yeah. And that's something you were invested in doing. You wouldn't be. You'd be quite happy as well, just putting a page up and leaving it there, would you? Or
I've done that once, and again, it was sort of like I left it as a joke, which was like I put the page up, and then the notes were like original page use, can't remember, materials, some stuff, notes. My dad's coming around and the house isn't tidy, and then that was all the notes. Whereas I think the day after that, I just went on and on and on and on about my son's art homework and how he hadn't done it, and all like, and that's part of the pro. And sometimes, like when, especially on pages which I've worked on for a long time, and I've used lots of different things, so they list out all the materials that I've used. So where I've used acrylic paints or acrylic inks and watercolor and specific pens and what nibs were on the pens, and I'll list it out meticulously. And I'll often get to that point, I'm just like, I can't be fucked with this. I do not want to have to write out Unipin, fine liner, brush nib black. But I've invested now. That's part of the Patreon project, is going through that pain every time I post something. So
you ever feel like throwing in just a little hand grenade, like I used a Bowie knife on this?
Yeah.
For oh yeah, that's a good idea actually. Yeah, human sacrifice, materials, offal.
Yeah, it's
awful.
Virgin.
Not enough
page.
people mention offal in their comics. But you speak about like the Patreon project, because is the Sluice?
That's right. Yeah, it's a stupid title, which I regret every time I've got to mention it. But again, I've been doing it for.
So tell us a bit more about this project before we get into the Patreon.
Yeah. Okay. Sort of thing. So the point of so let's take a step back from what the point of the project is, which is that during lockdown, my son and my daughter were getting lots of homework sent to them from school, and they were printing out pages and pages and pages, filling out like one line on it and then throwing it away. I was like, this is such a waste. We cannot do this. So I was collecting every piece of paper that was generated in the house. I was collecting and keeping in a box to use in art projects, and I was using it bit by bit. Thunders was created on discarded paper, and some Mean Puke was as well. That was created on paper that my daughter discarded. But I just had so much of it. I've got a box full, and what I've realized as I've started this project is that it's impossible. I can't use all of this stuff I've got. But the point of the Sluice was to just like make a concerted effort to use up as much. And also I've got all this, like I'll have bought paint, or over the years I've got all these drawings which I don't use. So it's like I'll just start using all this stuff, start making a page every day, and I'll put it on Patreon, and then if people want to watch it, then they can, and if not, that's cool. But it's just something which I can get on with. I think the idea of starting a Patreon it was just after I'd released Tuesday Salted Curse, Not This House, and Fold Mountain.
Just standard names.
Yeah.
Because I'd put loads of effort into like creating this sort of like drop moment where I had these three things together, and they could all get sent out, and they were such an arseache to print and get ready. And what should have been a day took 3 weeks, and at the end of that I was like, I need to do something which isn't printing, and so Patreon seemed like a really good way to do that, and that's why I started.
Because you say you're doing a page a day.
Yeah, it's like up to 120 pages so far, I think.
Yeah, it
Sluice.
is. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I've kept a page of the Sluice posted a day,
Right.
and then I've been doing other stuff alongside it. So I got it in my head that I'd really like to like interpret one of my favorite songs. So I did a 6-page comic which is interpreting the song "Song by Subtle," which nobody has talked about since 2004. But I had to just make this stupid comic, so I made that. I started a side project called Hetty, which is just like if you're a patron and go right back to the start, there's a link to a Google Drive with the pages for it in, which I didn't finish. But again, it's like Hetty was a stupid idea I had and just started working on, which was about it was about a woman who was stuck in a cycle of reincarnation and had decided to make it her mission to destroy the universe rather than get reincarnated once more. So it's sort of like the idea of it was that she'd be like the reverse Jack Reacher. So whereas he's going and like accidentally saving people, her purpose was to like destroy everybody. But I sort of ran out of steam on the idea, but that's sat back there. And then I've done Jet Wash Trampoline, and I've done a few other comics as well. But yeah, so the Sluice is every day. And the way I do it, and I don't know, Dan and Tony, how you were doing yours, but I'll just like schedule a week's worth and then put it to one side.
Yeah, it's quite good like that. You can schedule it. We were doing that with a whole comic, and then we could sit back and think, right, good. Now we need something as of, I don't know, the 2nd of June or something. Yeah, it's good like that, I think.
Mine's doing it on the night all the time. I'm posting as I'm working on stuff. It's kind of going up there. Kind of flying by the seat of my pants.
So with Patreon itself, then, like when you sort of start one up, you can, like a blog, you can line up a load of posts, and then it will just send them.
It gives you the time you can set it to and everything. Yeah, it's pretty good like that. Yeah, it's very user friendly.
Or you can do it as and whenever you've got like news or
just add one here and there. Yeah.
You can when you create a page, you can publish now, or you can schedule it, and then you can also decide whether it's public or for patrons only. And also, I think you can set which tier of patron gets to see it as well.
Yeah, we did like the odd thing, which was public posts, just so that people who hadn't signed up could see it. And I think we did that with a couple of the podcasts. But did you, when you started it, did you say, right, this is my sort of raison d'etre, this is how I'm going to do the content, this is how I'm going to do the frequency? Did you go into it that thought out, Gareth? Or
Patreon, I think so.
I've got this stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I definitely knew that I wanted to do a page a day. And I think I've definitely got to do a year now that I've started it.
Yeah, that's what we did. We set out to do it. Yeah.
And then we'll see how it goes after that. But so it was a page a day, and then just the way I work means that doing lots, like working on 7 or 8 pages at once, because there's so much like water and paint and stuff sort of just sitting around, I can leave them to dry. Whereas if I was doing it day by day, I'd never get anything done because nothing would be dry in time.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll like work on stuff for 3 or 4 hours a night, leave it to dry in my office, and then in the morning it's ready to scan, and then I just get the ball going like that.
Cool.
I've got to say, one of the things on Patreon, I always wonder, am I giving my patrons enough bang for their buck?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, am I kind of...
There's that sense of obligation, isn't there, that you're giving them their money's worth. We almost sort of feel like I have to over-egg that. Because people are being that kind.
I'm really bad at that as well.
Yeah.
So in terms of my tiers, I've got for £1 a month, you get to see everything I post. And then for £5 a month, I'll send you a page from the Sluice, and for £10 a month, I'll send you 3.
Okay.
And then the people
just to be clear, this is like a digital first. They'll see it rather than them actually getting a print, like the original copy. just to be clear.
I'm trying to get far ahead enough so that they will have had the paper copy before it gets gets posted. But I'm not quite ahead of myself yet on that. But I'm really conscious that people aren't getting enough value for their £1 a month.
I think because we've been bitten so many times over the years. I remember when Patreon started, there was a certain writer who said, "I'll send you a motivational quote once a month," and people were thinking, "Oh, Patreon, it means they'll know I'm their friend," and they were all signing up, and I felt there was a lot of like con jobs going on. So when we did it, we said, right, every day of the week, comic out, and then we do something extra every week. That was how we went about it. Because there'll be criticism from
mine or yours, Tony. Like, because you were putting out a page a day, I was like, okay, I could probably do that.
Yeah,
and that felt fair as well.
Yeah,
so I definitely did mine off the back of signing up to yours. I think
that's good. Thanks, man. I mean, we live in a world now. We've talked about it a few times where Shonen Jump is £1.99 a month.
Yeah.
So I know we can't keep up with that, but we've got to try and show some kind of.
But
Patreon, it's not just a fan club.
No,
I think
but it offers I think it appeals to the behind the scenes crowd as well. People want to know how you create things. I think rather than just going, here's the page. Do you know what I mean? If it was a standard Marvel comic and they just gave you one page every week or something like that, but people post things and like there's a bit of text that goes with it. I mean,
you do well there, man, writing the explanation and stuff. That's great. Really.
Yeah. And Dan, like, you're doing sketches of upcoming pages, so people. It's fascinating when those like hit my email because I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's in what context is that going to be part of the page?
They're going to come into it. One thing I've done, I've had people reach out to me through the Patreon and said, how do I do this? How do I do that? Or how do you do this? And then I've spoken to them through the private messages saying, well, you can do this, this, and this. And if there's enough people want it, sometimes I'll do a video. But sometimes having that ability, I've had this on Patreons where I've backed people in the past and you reach out to them saying, how do you do that? I have no idea. And they give you a little rundown of it. It's like that kind of information is almost literally impossible to come across. And because you're paying, it's only like a couple of bucks, whatever, but there's an obligation to kind of pass that information on.
Yeah, we found there was a great level of interaction on our one. Okay. So we would see discussions start about stuff, comments, what they liked and what people didn't like. I found it quite interactive. I know when we finished George Mayhem on there about sort of 6 or 7 months ago, there was a real level of interaction on there and people talking about their feelings about it and their experiences and stuff like that. Multiple replies, and I was really liking that. And you can tell when a page hits is people will say stuff,
that stuff takes work to build up, and if you don't nurture it, it'll die off very quickly. So it's one of those things you got to keep kind of like the discussion up. And when it's going, it's like self-feeding. Really,
I mean the part of the Patreon, like from the person who's rather than the creator, from the person who's pledging their support like per month, is when you cut it down to its basics, they want to be part of something. They want to. It's not just a subscription service just to get comics, because we could just do that. Like you say, there's Shonen Jump. There's something. Like, Patreon's a different thing. You feel.
I want to see stuff other people aren't seeing as well. I think it's the one you've got to be careful of.
And you feel like you're almost on the other side of the table with the creator. And I know there's obviously like there's creators and there's filmmakers and there's all kinds of people with Patrons that have like huge followings, but and there will be that interaction, like you said, Tony. Like people will be more interactive on there because they feel like they're on the inner circle.
I dropped off one. I'm on a couple of really good ones. You two guys, there's some really good ones. I'm on 11 o'clock comics. I love being on them. For that, you get an extra podcast. You get once a month. You get to vote in things. You get access to their Slack group, which is a great little community. I fell off for one because they said if you come on the Patreon, you get this extra podcast, and then they just started posting the podcast because they were running out of material on the their actual
that's
live
not
feed.
good.
And so I said, I'm going to drop off this one. And I think having that insight into what's going on and that stuff that you're paying for stuff that no one else can see, I suppose is part of the attraction to it. Certainly for me, it is.
Well, our Slack, we don't charge for that, and that is essentially the inner circle, isn't it? As it were.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the group, and it's a nice little way to build up friends and fellow creators. There's a lot of people offer up opinions and
charity and pound shops and stuff. Yeah, it's been good actually. Yeah, it really has.
Yeah, but it isn't just like
No,
go on, Gareth. Go on.
I was just going to say that a lot of the patrons that I subscribe to is just because I want to. So they're like YouTubers or whatever, and I will spend 3 or 4 hours watching their videos while I'm working, and then think, right, I need to throw them some money.
Yeah.
So I'll find a Patreon. So that's one way to do it, and then just go through the list of people I subscribe to. And sometimes it's just that I want to support that creator. So rather than that, I'm getting anything extra. I want to
I see. So it is what it is.
Show my support.
It's patronage, isn't it? Is where the word comes from. It's the same in the old days. Yeah.
I'd like to think, Touchwood, I get that from a lot of the Vanguard patrons because I'm putting out the webcomic, and if you give me $1 a month just to kind of help out, that's fucking awesome. It really helps out. So yeah, that's great.
I think the no product people are the ones that annoy me the most, I think. But the thing is, what you can do as well is you can pause taking payment. It's very easy to do through the site. I know, who's your buddy, V? She did it, didn't she?
Lise April Amelia.
Lise did it, didn't she?
Yeah,
so,
obviously.
Which is the right thing to do. Yeah. You can pause it. And I think it's the people who
and
don't
her
put
one's
stuff
no
out
longer
for months.
active, I think.
That's
I
right.
think it is literally, if she not there creating, if she can't, when we had her on the show to talk about Patreon way back, we should just check out that show as well.
That's what got me to do it, man.
Yeah, and
that's
it was one of
started,
those. Because I think sometimes you think of Patreon, you think of like big numbers, or it's just for this, or it's just for that. Whereas, speaking to Lise was like one of those where there doesn't have to be much, but by the end of it, the people that follow you could have a physical book because the Patreon pays for this.
Yeah, that's
book.
a great idea.
It's like OnlyFans, but for art, isn't it?
Yeah.
OnlyFans is art.
But
yes, sorry.
But once again, it's there's a responsibility, and there's the people have made a commitment in money, so you need to make a commitment in what.
That's right, man. There is that obligation. I know it's quite sort of work ethic. Not everyone has it, but if I'm paying you money, you've got to do something.
Yeah, this isn't. It's not a free piggy bank. It should never be seen as a free piggy bank. It's always got to be like, if you're supporting us, thank you very much. Here's what you get for it.
Are there any particular things that you find, Dan, Gareth, I suppose, and pointing this out, is that are more popular than others? Is there anything you thought, oh, that's really popular, I'll try that again, or anything like that so far?
I find it a hard one to kind of put my finger because sometimes something goes really well and then other times not. But calling back to that interacting with your audience, if you put questions to them, your patrons, and that's a good way to get response and feedback and start up conversations. So it's usually stuff when I say, well, I'm not sure about A or B, which do you think? And then that sometimes generates feedback. Yeah, I think you've got to do it the right way. It's not like those Twitter questions, say, what's the best Marvel movie? I think you and I spotted that many years ago, Gareth, didn't we, about annoying people putting those questions out. But I think if you do it the right way and it's a genuine question, if you say that, I'm not sure if I've got two sketches of character and I say, I'm not sure if I want to go for look A or look B. What do you guys think? And then take it as like they're an advisory board and go from there.
Yeah.
I think because I post every day though, and this isn't like a criticism of people who have Patreon. I don't think people pay attention to things as they come in necessarily, because they'll get an email and they might go onto Patreon. But I think what most people do who are on mine is they'll just like every week or so they'll scroll through, and you can sort of see it when it's happened because
the likes come up and stuff, don't they?
That's definitely me.
Everything. And so getting interaction, I've found quite difficult. There's a few people who will who will comment on things, and it's never the stuff that I expect them to. So so Daniel, who's someone I know in the US, he'll just like make little quips every now and again, and Claire Napier, who joined, I think she joined as much for the notes, because she just likes reading it absolute madness that I just chuck into the notes rather than the pages sometimes, I think.
Yeah, shout out to Claire actually, because she always backs our Kickstarters as well. Claire, thank you very much. Yeah,
Claire's awesome. And she, Claire's also like promoted the Sluice without me prompting, which is just like that happens is amazing. It's like if someone's just like, this is really good, and I have had to say, can someone say my stuff is good, please? Or if not,
we need to do that more, don't we? I know that's basically what this show is, but as a sort of content provider, as we're called, I suppose, we need to sort of start shouting about it. For example, Ian Ashcroft's is a great one.
I follow it. Yeah,
really good.
That is amazing. Yeah, his is good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really posting up all the black and white pencil stuff of Kia Wordsmith on there, and that's great. I blow my own fucking bugle. I put all the issues of updated the folder.
I saw that today. Yeah, that's great, man.
All 19 PDFs in there.
19 free comics for you. There you go.
Yeah.
Get on that.
And Viper's on there as well, free. Well, I say free. Got to pay $1 a month, but
well, that's the other thing we've done, because obviously we finished ours. We said, right, we're going to do a year. It's a nice little, and not in any kind of like, oh, let's build an audience kind of, shallow way. We just wanted to try it for a year and put ourselves under some pressure to make comics constantly for a year, which we did. I mean, I think we put out 12 comics in the end.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we were pleased, and Adam's a workhorse, but as well as being an animal, obviously. But what we did as well is we finished it, so we're not taking anyone's money, but we've left it up. So because if you scroll back through it, there are PDFs available and Google Drives and stuff where you can go back, and if you forgot to download the stuff I did with Daryl, or you forgot to download the stuff I did with Adam or someone, you can go back and get it now. So that's why we've left it up for a bit.
That's a nice touch.
I think it's not a good idea. Yeah. And maybe signposting to new members that there's these posts, almost reposting stuff. This can be useful. I've taught them from February last year. Don't forget you can download this comic.
That's really handy for the tags. If you're going to start a Patreon, one of the things to do is before you start going is work out those tags and
Daryl and Adam were really good with that. Actually, I didn't really
tag PDF. So right, I want a PDF. Click on the PDFs, and it brings.
So
up all
in
the posts
terms, go on, Idiot's Guide. Let's Idiot's Guide this.
Yeah.
So in terms of tags, you're talking about the standard sort of hashtags and stuff, so that people are searching for stuff.
So you can literally add tags to your post, and then when you look at someone's Patreon, you'll have a list of tags that they've used on the left-hand side or the right.
Is it good? Is it good to have an exorbitant amount of tags rather than just have specific one or two?
Definitely, that's what I mean. Specific ones, just drawing, question, tutorial, free comic PDF, however you want to do it. It's I started doing it at the beginning and then didn't do it for ages, and now I'm fucking hundreds and hundreds of posts deep, and it's I'm not going to go back.
It's almost like you need to create a little document where you've got just your tags you can just copy paste onto each one, rather than think, oh, what's this one about? You need to have almost like a little note on your desktop, just to copy that, paste it in every time you post.
Because you do that with this podcast, don't you, V? You can tag subjects within it. Can't you?
But once again, I bloody forget to do it sometimes. You know what I mean? There's a list of ones. It's
easy to forget.
Yeah.
It's one thing I'd say about when people start up a Patreon. It's I see the question posted on social media and creator groups all the time. It's I want to start a Patreon, but I don't know what to put in it. Don't start one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have a load of stuff to put in it already when you press go. Yeah.
It's I'm going to set up a shop. I have no idea what I'm going to fucking sell. So don't open the shop.
Sorry, Gareth. Come on, mate.
Go on.
No, I was going to say about tags. So I realised too late that I should have been tagging them. So I think there's 76 pages tagged as the slewest, but there's 120 pages of it posted. So that's a bit annoying. But then I used it for when I did the song. I tagged that so that it would stand out. And then I've also posted some whole comics with annotations. And so there's an annotated comics tag so that you could just
click
on that and then just those posts would be there.
Yeah.
Yes. And also I tagged public posts. So if it was
that's a good idea.
Public, then it's set that. So if someone wants to come in, then they can have a look at I think I'm trying to make at least one a week public so that people can just have a nose at what's happening.
I should do that more.
So that's how I've used
that. We did that with one of our podcasts. I think we thought, because in that we sort of verbally sum up everything we're doing, so we could, and then we would post that on social media, and we got a couple of extra followers from people who thought, oh, well, that's what it's about. I didn't realise what it's about,
Because otherwise, if it's all locked behind a paywall and you don't know what you're going to get, people will well, they're unlikely to try it, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think Patreon recommend that.
Yeah, okay. You can do update posts. So rather than it being a comic page or a podcast or a little video or something, we would actually just put a page of text up that was, this is where we're going this month, this is what's happening, or, thanks to everyone who read this is, what we were trying to do with it and stuff like that. And if you make that a public post, then people can, people get a case of fear of missing out, don't they? They get a bit of FOMO about, I've read this post and it says that there's been this marvelous comic about, cannibals. And why am I missing, and then they'll sign up.
Getting on that. I'm going to have to try that. That's a good shout.
Mm. Are there any particular ones that you guys follow that we're missing out on? Is there any out there that are worth a look at?
I used to follow the guy who made Behind the Dune, watching where he comes from. But there's a lot of pornography on that.
Yeah.
So
what's that?
That's a perfect one.
Yeah, and there is an active market for that as well. Like the artists that do that, the NSFW artists make a killing.
If you want a few quid, man, you want to look at doing that.
Yeah.
There was another guy who did one of the Vanguard covers. Stephen Stahl, I think his name is. I followed him for a while, and you could do like a $5 tier and above, and you'd get like a layered PSD file that he'd work on, and you could download it and then see what he'd done. And some of the stuff was like, it was the same shot, but like people would be change position, and what he'd do is he'd paint it and then repaint a head on the top and a different layer, and you could flick between the two. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Obviously, he's a very skilled digital painter, but it was just interesting seeing how someone else handles Photoshop.
Yeah, that's good for you guys, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I mention Stephen Ingram's one? That's really good. So that's another regular number of pages a week in relation to a story.
Oh, fantastic.
And I really like Steve's work. He's doing something called Burn With Me, which is page 31, and it's a really lovely, well-drawn, well thought out, and he's got the pacing right for a daily page release. If you see what I mean?
Yeah.
I think there's an art to that, and also every so often he'll put out a Google link which has got an older comic of his. You can download the 6 or 7 pages from that story that was in this anthology and stuff like that. I don't even think Stephen's one of those sort of blokes people in UK small press need to know more about, because he's a very subtle storyteller. I really like his stuff.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah.
Do you, if you haven't got much of confidence before we go on,
I was going to shout out Edison Neo.
Yes. As well.
More people need to get on that, because you can download it. I mean, went on his and you can download all of his fucking comics on there.
Brilliant.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, everyone should get on that one. It's great, because
he's a regular. He's another regular, isn't he? So if you got your notifications stuck on Patreon, you'll get constant notifications.
But sometimes he just posting some highlights of past stuff, but also like the stuff he's working on in the future.
I suppose the other thing we haven't talked about here is the competition for Patreon, because I'm on a couple. I'm not on any paid Substacks, but I'm on quite a few Substacks at the moment, and that's now got an app as well, and I'm getting notifications for that as well. Mike Barron, past guest, friend of the show, Mike Barron's on there, and you get some really interesting essays from him on there on the art of writing.
Isn't anyone on Substack literally Hitler though?
Sorry. Yeah. Have we forgotten? Have we forgotten that? Has that moved on? But there's some good people on Substack. You know what I mean? I like Substack. But I think the game changer for that one is the fact that it became an app.
Yeah, that is the thing, isn't it? Like once you can kind of get the ease of just having the app, and there's another one, another post gone up, and quickly flick on it and check it out. That's an absolute winner.
I've got Adrian Tominay. He's on there. I know you're a fan of his, V's. He's got a good one. Cartoonist Kayfabe, we've got one, which is a good one on there as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. I really like this stuff. There's some really Howard Chaykin's got one.
There is. I will say there's not that I'm a member of any. I don't have a specific name in mind, but there's a raft of creators who are, for instance, people that are creating fonts or people that are creating brushes, and there's stuff to really help your creative process. From whether it be artists or writers or anything, people are creating tools, as well as like following your favorite creators and seeing what books they're doing, or whether you like comics, movies, games, everything. There's loads of indie creators that have got these Patreons that are like, I want to show you the process, and here I've got some stuff that could help you as well. And certainly sometimes with me, it's those, that's a Procreate brush. This person does Procreate brushes, do they? And of course, you'll click on their Patreon page and you see they've got fucking thousands of Patreons,
loads of brushes,
and just loads of brushes, and you just think, fuck. how much is that person making a month? I mean, I don't know how does the money breakdown work afterwards, because Patreon, I'm guessing, take a good chunk, do they? I mean, I don't know. How does it work? How does it work compared to like a Kickstarter or something like that on the other end?
I don't think it's anywhere in the same ballpark as how much a Kickstarter takes over how much Patreon takes. Am I right there, fellas?
I don't know. So I've got 16 patrons who are very dedicated. And then,
go on, let's get that number up. Go on, Pete.
Let's name them all. Come on. Yeah.
But it's the same 16 since they started. So from day one, it's the same 16 people who are on there.
Yeah. If anyone drops out, do you just delete their name from your social media, your phone? They're dead to you now.
I claim they're into NFTs on Twitter.
That's the end of them.
Yeah.
No, because the thing is, like, this is back to the money thing. For patrons, is that I'm fully aware that people have things to spend money on other than me.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to make it as easy as possible for people to either like pull back the amount of money they're giving me or just cancel guilt-free, because I think that's really important as well.
It's easy enough to cancel people as well. If you haven't supported anyone on Patreon, there are some that I am long-term followers of. There are other people that after a couple of months you're sort of thinking, I can't. Why did I sign up for this? It's too much money for this. And
we had somebody drop out and come back as well, which is quite an interesting one.
Yeah, because sometimes you just can't afford that extra outgoing for that particular month, and that's fine, because like you can go away and you can rejoin. And then you'll have access to the stuff you've missed as well, isn't it? That's how it works, isn't it? You'll still, because I think the creators are just appreciate the support. So it's almost like you buy the key to the certain door you're getting. You can look into all the wares and stuff. So some people, for instance, like when you cancel one, it does give you an option of all the different tiers as well. So it's not an immediate, oh, you're cancelled. It's like, are you sure? They've got these other tiers, and you think, now I'm on the cheapest one as it is.
Go bounce.
I'm out. Peace out. So it's not financially it's a different game to Kickstarter then. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. The numbers aren't anywhere near as high on a Kickstarter.
And when we talk about this, we're not talking about like people like in the millions or thousands, or you go make more than a packet of crisps. I mean, if you listen to this show, you know that making comics. Good luck to you.
We won't be millionaires.
No.
There is people that make a good living off of Patreon, though.
Yeah.
You see the occasional one. I know I was chatting to Eamon the other day. He listens to one that's sort of conspiracy theory one, people are lizards and stuff. And he said they made so much because you can hide the number on the page, can't you?
Yeah.
They've hidden it because they were making so much money. I mean, naming no names, we do know of people who make an awful lot of money on Patreon. And then moan about they had to, took ages to sign on at the Dole office this week.
Because like that, Patreon is a taxable income.
Of course it is. Yeah.
So if you, I don't know how you could be earning hundreds, if not thousands of pounds, and then
when you say you can hide the number, is that like the monetary number or how many patrons? Or can you hide both?
You can do, the same way that you see people who hide the amount of downloads on their podcast.
Yeah.
The same as that.
Yeah.
And also, like on Instagram, you can hide the number of people who've liked it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Didn't know that.
I think, is it on YouTube? You can hide if people don't like it now. Is that right?
Oh, then YouTube have done that to everybody. You can't see how many dislikes there have been on a video.
What I find,
millennial.
Yeah. What I like to do is when I go outside the house,
bombing YouTube videos.
What I like to do is like when I go outside the house and someone else comes in the opposite direction, I just hide.
Well, I start getting grief off my wife, just put my fingers in my ears and go la 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 la, la.
Yeah.
Nothing's wrong. I can't do anything.
Yeah, everyone loves me.
I bet that works, doesn't it, Dan?
Yeah.
How is the
crashing
shed?
sting?
Is it cold in the shed?
He managed to get his finger out of his ear, where she slammed him across the head.
Oh God!
What was that game you wanted to play at Thought Bubble, Dan? About fingers.
Gollum.
Gollum. That's good. That looks
No.
Good game.
Fucking you're
Heartwarming. That's what I'm wholesome.
Absolutely monsters.
I put the worst thing I've ever put on the WhatsApp group today.
Yeah, well, listen later after the.
No,
the music.
I'm not having that read to me. I'm not having that read to me. That made me sick.
It's fucking hell. It's really.
It's the worst thing I've ever heard.
Worst. I thought it was like an Easter treat.
You liar.
I don't know if you get locked up for that, but fucking
proper clarinet.
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose if the other person didn't like it.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you in a minute, Gareth. It's not a video.
Thank you.
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah. Go on, send it to him on a message now because I want to hear live. He doesn't have a read. Don't read it out.
Find it.
Yeah.
Well, while Tony does that, my sister was over from Australia, and I was trying to explain Nadine Dorries to her, and I don't know if you've seen Daily Dorries on Twitter.
No, I haven't seen that.
Where people post excerpts from her novels on Twitter, and they're just horrendously filthy.
Oh,
they are really bad. And so I was going to read out like one of these Daily Dory tweets, and then I was like, I can't bring myself to read this out loud because it's so horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sort of like when you read something out like that, you take on some of the weight of it. Do you know what I mean? When you say something absolutely grim, it's like some of it belongs to you, and it's kind of
it's like reading something but written by someone really stupid. I almost feel like I'm catching it. Yeah.
Oh God. Speaking of stupid, we have a little bit of a game we're going to play in a minute.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, look at you. Oh, he's put it in the group. Look, you had it planned, didn't you?
Yeah, I saved it because I thought we might be reading out later. But Vince
printed it out.
Put the kibosh on that.
Sorry, I've just read it now, and ironically, that's saved next to like the Easter egg hunt leaflets in my downloads file.
Oh God. Oh God!
I even have some left on the floor last night. That's genuinely grim. Thanks,
crumbs.
Oh dear.
Should we play?
Now, if you follow on our Patreon, you'll know what we're talking about. No, we don't have a Patreon. We don't have a Patreon.
We do our fantastic quiz now. Are we wrapping up the patron chat?
Yes. Well, let's just finish up this conversation with this. Firstly, you got to get hold of Gareth's work.
Please do. We've been fans for years, and it's marvelous. Yeah.
What? I always think it's fascinating, Gareth, in terms of like what other creators with your sort of style like are there, or have you met any people that are doing the same thing that you're doing?
It's interesting. Yeah, so there's a few people, and we're all sort of like doing our own thing, and then accidentally doing the same thing occasionally. So Mark Badger, who used to work for DC.
I know. Yeah.
He was like abstract for DC style. He did a Martian Manhunter thing with James DeMatteis. Is that how you say James DeMatteis?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but he's been doing abstract work for the past few years, and he's done a series of abstract Kirby books. So similar to how I'm doing, but more he was using form and colour more than line. So there's him, and there's a compilation. There's hang on. There is a book coming out in May. There's a CBK anthology called Uncomics, which has been put together by Alan Haverhome, who is sort of a comics academic, and so I'm in it. Sam Russell's in it.
Cool.
And then a few of like random people who do stuff. There's a lady called, I'm saying lady, woman, I don't know what she would prefer to be called, Anastasia Marsh. I think she's in it. And yes, there's people who are doing similar work, but we don't necessarily interact with each other very often around it because we're just in our own little grooves.
You're sort of scared of them.
Yeah.
Scared of them.
But what's quite nice is that sometimes I'll see something that Simon's done, or I'll see something that Mark's done. We don't have to we just sort of get it immediately because we've been through that, and we'd never feel like a need to explain our work to each other, which is quite nice. So.
Yeah, I really enjoy reading your books, man. The thing is, I love the language you use. I think that there's some really poignant stuff going on in there, and occasionally just absurdist, bizarre stuff, which
plus some really sort of emotional stuff.
Yeah, there is. There's some depth to it, isn't there?
Yeah,
more than you see elsewhere.
Yeah, I tried to get that. So like, Not This House, which came out in December, I think, November or December. It was a ghost story, but it was as much about working from home. So it's about a ghost who's like really self-pitying, and then like the house he's haunting, just like not having any time for his self-pity. And so I tried to make that as sort of like direct and emotive as possible, and try and like really hit certain emotional notes with the writing, and kept it really sparse to allow that to grow. But then Jet Wash Trampoline I've written, and that's intentionally just like to be as off the wall as possible. And I read the script out to my daughter, and as I was reading it, I was editing it, so I was realizing there's some stuff that I shouldn't be reading out to her. But she was like, please stop, this doesn't make any sense. I feel stupider for having listened to you talk to me.
But do you get people occasionally, you say, I've got this comic called Jet Wash Trampoline, do they go, right, you're trolling me now, what are you doing? You know, I mean, do you think people, you enjoy that absurdist sort of reaction from people sometimes, you know, to your work?
I think I enjoy the interaction with the straw man version of them. So when I have like the imaginary interaction with someone coming across my work, I enjoy that sort of friction. And then in real life, I find it really tiring. So like if I'm at a con and someone walks up and they're like, "What's this all about?" And then I explain it, and they just go, "Oh, I don't get it," and then walk off. I just find that really exhausting. Yeah. But equally, you'll get people wander up, and at Thought Bubble a few years ago, this woman walked up and she went, "You like texture, don't you?" Almost as an affront. I was like, "Yeah, I love it. It's great." Yeah.
But I actually find the way you do a lot of the stuff, especially when you do the panel stuff, really draws me in. I do. It's like staring at clouds sometimes, isn't it? You do begin to make your own story, you know, see your own images and stuff. There's one recently I think you put on the Patreon. I'm sure in my head it looked like that electric, is it called Zaz? What's that creature that's in the Hulk? The creature made of electricity. The one you use all the they almost look like traffic lights on their sides and stuff on that page. And I was thinking, that's what he's doing. You know,
Sometimes I am, and so sometimes I'm sort of like adding images in on purpose, and sometimes I'm not, and people are seeing them anyway. So a lot of reviews of Petrichor were like, "Oh, I can see this in the image," and it's like there's nothing in that image. That was, and so it's interesting to hear that. But where the strip I did for the last DIY, Spiders, that actually does have distinct. The last page of that has a portrait of the narrator and a bath sort of like overlaid on top of each other, and if anybody's seen them, they have never mentioned it. But that was like a really intentional idea because I knew what the story was as I was writing it, and so I put these two images in, and so whether it's subliminal or not, I don't know. I mean, the text was about a man having sex with a massive spider, so whether or not
that old chestnut, tale as old as time.
But that aids the abstraction of it aids to because I'm a bit of a fan of it, and that is poetry, man. It does a lot of it does feel like poetry. Do you approach it from a word, you know, a way of writing it? Yeah.
So whether or not it's so it's interesting. So I write prose and then I write as sparsely as possible because it doesn't cover up this what I've drawn, because sometimes I don't want to cover it all up with text. And then the other thing is that I like leaving room for the reader to write themselves in a little bit. So I'll leave. But the other thing I'm really conscious of is pacing. So either using the placement of text, the amount of text, and then the size of the panel it's in to dictate the pace. I'm really, really conscious of that.
That's so good you've said that, man. I mean, the thing is, like, people say that, you know, it's sequential medium and stuff like that. The drawings should lead one into the other, but so should the words. People forget that. You know, it really should. Yeah. And sometimes I've got the words first and then and then the images match that. But more often than not, I've got the images and then the text works into that. Like with Moon Puke, that and Ken Reynolds helped loads with that, actually, and he got what I was trying to do. Oh, cool.
And he was like, "You haven't paced this exactly how I think you want it to be paced. You need to find another 2 pages worth of text to put in this section to make the pace of the last section work a bit better." Yeah. So, but that's
I was
that's
I
the
was
bit
reading
I
Not
spend
This
the
House.
longest on. Yeah, go on.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was reading Not This House this morning, and one of my favourite pages is the lying page, where it's five vertical panels over the top of 4 vertical panels, and the first one says lies, and the second one says they are lying. And I love that. The layout, man, of that is just lovely. The positioning of the words, you've got an overlay over 2 panels on the bottom line, and so good. Yeah, no, really good.
Yeah,
that's one of my favourite ones. I like the colour work.
I
like the black and white as well. There's something about the black and white. I think maybe because I started with a lot of your black and white stuff, I like them both. But
there's definitely those moments when you kind of articulate a thought, like not maybe a shower thought at times, and it's like it sounds like a thought that me as a reader could have had, and it kind of
us middle-aged blokes.
Yeah. Just your mind drifting, and I sometimes get not told off, but like at work, I say, why we do that, or why is this like this? And
I know what you mean. Yeah,
everyone's like, why are you asking that question?
So Nothing was a comic I did a few years ago, and the whole comic was those little thoughts interspersed with and so it's stuff that isn't, and those ideas aren't enough to make anything whole out of. So for one day, as I was walking to work, it was the first day at work of the new year, and like half the people on the commute were wearing new coats because they'd all got coats for Christmas.
Yeah.
And then that just felt like enough to have as a caption. Or like if you're at a conference and everyone's staying at the same hotel, then everyone smells the same because they've all used the hotel shampoo.
Okay.
Just little things like that, which just sort of tiny things which people recognise. I always find really interesting.
But that's how some
now, which is what I've got to write about ghosts all the time.
Yeah, but that's some of the writing that I really like. The writers that I really like, they capture the realism of the moment. We often think about it, don't we, when we're driving the car or walking the dog or whatever we're doing, but it's capturing that mood and that moment so exactly and putting it onto paper, I think, is the art of a really good writer. I was reading a Hanif Qureshi short story the other day about how him and his girlfriend had bought a new table and were struggling to get it down the tube, as if he ever gets the tube, but was struggling to get it down the tube stairs. It was the most lovely story because it just captured every breath and every emotion, every look, and it's just so well done. And I think, manager, you do that, man, in a lot of your stuff, and I really like that about it. There's a realism to it as well, over the top of abstract imagery, which is why it makes it so interesting.
And which is why you need to back his Patreon.
Yes,
there you go.
Only £1 a month.
Well worth it. So get on it. There you go. That was a nice segue, wasn't it?
That's one.
Gareth's going to be with us for the rest of the show, but before that, we're going to have a bit of fun, aren't we, Tony? This better be fun. This better be fun.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you remember, if you listened to this one previously, but we did like stories that have appeared in the Beano and stories that have appeared in the Dandy, Gareth. And what I did is I'll read out. So one of the books I'm going to recommend in a bit is a book by a guy who's the sub-editor at Whizzer and Chips. So I had a look at their page.
Now, what is Whizzer and Chips for those that don't know?
So for the Americans, it's the classic British comedy weekly, full of 1 or 2 page strips about. It's what Viz lampoons, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. So Whizzer and Chips, I think 70s and 80s. I certainly read it as a kid, and they had a revolving door of many, many stories in there. So what I've done is I've made up some, and there's some real ones. Now, you got to say what we're going to do. We're all going to have a go at it. You're going to keep the score, aren't you, Dan?
Yeah, I keep the score.
Are you going to do it as well?
Who are you talking to?
I'll do it as well, yeah. I'll take the score as well.
Okay, cool. So what are you going to say? I'm going to tell you a name, and you've got to say, is it a whizzer or is it a wazzer?
Yeah. So Whizzer, if it did appear in Whizzer and Chips.
Wazzer, if I've made it up.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Right, good. So we're going to start. There's 11 of them.
11?
I crossed one out because it was too rude. Right.
Too rude for you. Wow.
Yeah. First one. Everyone ready?
Yes.
Lucky Dick. Is that a whizzer or is it a wazzer? Gareth?
I'm saying whizzer.
Whizzer. Dan?
Whizzer, definitely.
Vince?
Whizzer.
You're all right. It was a story. Number 2. Footsie the Clown. Footsie the Clown. Let's go, Dan.
I'll go first. Wazza.
Okay, Vince.
Waz.
Gareth.
I think Wazza. I think there's probably another unfortunately named Clown.
No, that's
But
a
I
true
don't
story.
think it's a
Footsie the
Ah.
Clown was a story. Yeah. Number 3, Clement and his teens. Clement and his teens.
This
See
is
the
you,
cunning
Vince.
wordplay there, Vince.
Waz.
Okay, Dan,
no.
Gareth. Sorry,
I'm going to say Wiz.
I'm gonna go Whizzer.
no, that was one I made up.
Vince pulled ahead.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it's an audio show.
Number 4, Watford Gap. Watford Gap. Gareth.
Oh, I'm going to say Wazza.
Okay. Who's next?
It's me.
Dan?
I'm gonna go Whizzer, just to be contrarian.
I'm
Vince?
gonna say Whizzer.
Yes, it was a story. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Number 5.
Gareth, you sound so upset then.
Yeah.
Number 5, Jiminy Lickett and his sweet shop.
Right, okay, right. This is either so Tony Esmond, no one would ever call it that, or it's
I think it's-
House of Madness and it actually existed. And
Jiminy
it could be.
Lickett and his sweet shop.
Go on, Vince, it's you.
I gotta say Waz.
Okay. Gareth.
I think it's a Wiz.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Waz.
I made that one up.
Oh, just imagine living in a world where that was real.
I love
Yeah.
for Vince, the whole game is looking into my mind.
Yeah.
yeah.
Not based
It's
on any
also-
memory of the comic.
Vince is
No.
playing the meta game.
Yeah, but also the sort of like, if this exists in the real world, I might need to leave.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm doing what is wrong, which is like I'm inventing that comic in my brain.
Yeah.
Oh, this
Predator
this
in the
needs to be a
70s.
comic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of these I need to
Yeah.
see from you, Gareth. Some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next one, number 6, Sid's snake. Sid's snake. Who's first?
This, I think it's me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that's a Whizzer.
Okay. Gareth.
I think it's a Wizard as well.
Vince.
I think it's a Whizzer, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a famous one, Sid's snake.
Yeah,
it's quite
there
a
we
famous
go.
one. Number 7, Jacob's crackers. Number 7, Jacob's crackers.
I'm gonna say
I
I'm
reckon
gonna
it's a Wazza.
I'm gonna say Wazza. I'd love it to be real, but I think it's a Waz.
Okay.
I'm gonna go for a Whizzer.
Okay, no, I made that one up. It's actually Cockney rhyming slang for testicles. Jacob's crackers, knackers.
Knackers.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 8, Bella's balloons.
Fucking hell.
I'm gonna say Waz. I'm gonna say Waz again.
Okay. Gareth.
I'm going to say Waz as well.
Okay. Dan.
I'm gonna go Whizzer.
I made that one up.
I'm just losing points for being a contrarian.
Number 9, Henry's invisible hedgehog.
This is me. I'm gonna whiz Wazza, without a doubt. Wazza.
I think you've read that out of the Ann Summers catalogue. That's a Wazza.
I reckon it's a Whizzer.
No, made that one up.
Ah.
Number 10, penultimate question. Bobby's ghoul.
This is you, Gareth.
That's a Wizard, I reckon.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Wazza.
Okay. Vince.
Oh, Whizzer.
Yeah, that's a true one. Number 11.
Where did you put Gareth? Whizzer or Wazza?
I think I said Wizard.
He
Yeah,
said
you
Whizzer
did,
for that one.
Yeah, you got it right. Last one, Buffalo Bill.
Fucking hell.
Notoriously where they got the
this is
name
me.
from in Science of the Land.
I'm gonna say Wazza.
Okay.
I think it's a Wizard.
Okay.
I think it's a Wazzer.
It's true, that one.
Oh,
Ah, there
There
we
you go.
That
The
was
one I made up was too rude, which is A Day at Berkeley Hunt. Right. That's also rhyming slang.
So we come in, me, the lowly 5 points, last place.
Oh.
Second place, Gareth with 7, and winner with 8 points, Vince.
Vince.
bam, bam, bam. What a thing to be proud of.
Whizzer or Wazzer. You're a whizzer and they're
I-
Wazzers.
I really need to look at myself in the mirror. And
Examine it in the shower, my friend. That's what we'll do.
my invisible hedgehog.
We need to do another Beano. We'll do another Beano one at Christmas.
Yeah. What was it? It was Beano or what? What was the?
I can't remember what we did with the Beano. Whizzer or Wazzer was an easier one, wasn't it?
Did we do a dandy one as well?
I think we did do a dandy one. I can't remember. I did a quiz for Cliff when he was over with his kids. Do you remember they had COVID? So I did a quiz for
we
them.
do have the Viz quiz lined up.
Yes.
It's waiting in the wings, as it were.
Yeah. That's going to get
more on that later, listener.
more on that. But before that, do we have any shout-outs this week, gents?
Yes, I've got 2. So sign up to be notified to the launch of Tom Long's Post, the new comic from Kev Cooling. Follows the story of Tom Long, who was a notorious highwayman in the Cotswolds in the 1800s. I've had a read of this, actually, and it's really good, really atmospheric. Kev has seriously leveled up with this. It's a nice clash again. It's a story about a historical character, but it's got like an underground feel to him. It's actually quite disquieting. Nice. It goes live today, so as you're listening to it goes live. So find that and go and back it. I've done the old notification thing for it. And my second one is congratulations to Pete and David for hitting the 100 episodes for the brilliant, I was listening to it, DC-centric podcast, the Earth 2 podcast. I've just listened to episode 100 today, which focuses on a particularly nutty issue of Jimmy Olsen. It's really well worth listening. And they kind of, it's a bit different because they kind of act out what happens in it and comment on it. And they do, they get guests in to do voices and stuff. And it's quite a fun one. I really enjoy listening to those two guys. And
I've never listened to that. I might have to give that a go.
Yeah. It's a good one. Go there, Mighty.
Nice.
Some of those old school comics are mental.
Silver Age and Bronze Age DC. It's crazy. Yeah.
Whereas like Lois Lane said, I want to see what it's like to live as a black woman, and goes in the machine. It's like this is gonna go well.
It's like the comics version of Soul Man. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah. I got taken to the cinema to see that, and then it just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. But,
I saw it at the cinema. Yeah, I remember the soundtrack being good.
Oh, I can literally remember the title track, and that's it.
My God.
Can't quite remember how it was.
Anyway, any other shout? Gents. Shout out to all
anyone else got any favourite race swap comedy?
What's that one Lenny Henry did?
All right, right. Thank you to all our lovely
remember that one.
new listeners.
White girls.
How do you mute everyone? How do you mute? I can't mute everyone. Thank you to all our lovely new listeners. Recently, hope you're enjoying this nonsense. And a small shout out that I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. But we are going clickbaity with our with our episode titles. Yeah. Not in a super obvious way. Hopefully it's not too garish.
One should be how to make $$ on Patreon.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I can't.
This episode is called "This is Tony boning your mum." Pictures of
I can't do that. Look, I put it at the value of art and Patreon comics. That's just enough for people to go, oh. Which is that's all I want to do in life is have people make
episode
that noise.
356 boobs.
Did we put that one? I don't think I said that one on there about the 2000 AD show. What one we should have put for that?
No, what was that?
I just said we should call the thing like 2000 AD as shit on the podcast title.
Yeah.
And loads of people are like, what the fuck is this? And like instantly listen, and there's like nothing.
Yeah.
Just gushing praise for 2000
You'll
AD.
never believe what this person said about 2000 AD.
Jim Lee has died. That's next week's podcast.
No, that's not
CP, Jim Lee.
That's not how the clickbait for a podcast works. Because then you just look at the title and then you Google it.
Yeah.
It's more like
we are going to murder Jim Lee.
You just sort of
say
easy
steps.
Jim Lee said what to us? That's what you do, and then people are like, "Oh, what did Jim Lee say?" He said nothing because he's never going to talk to us. Jim, if you're listening, call us back.
We never take any attention to what's happening. We've got like quite a high-profile guest hopefully lined up, and we're just talking shit again.
And I really hope that Jim Lee doesn't die tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or
at least till after. If he does, if he's going to die, can he do it in the time for us to change the title of this podcast?
To be fair, like the person we're talking to, their kind of book would listen to the first couple of minutes, go, yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
We wouldn't listen to this bit.
No, but we're hoping comics creators die.
Yeah.
What do you mean hoping? No,
we need listeners.
No, I do not want to endorse us hoping for death just so we can get, I don't know, 10 more listeners.
Oh, please buy my comic.
Please. Oh dear. Right. Anyway, speaking of comics, let's recommend some lovely comics. And as always, the guest goes first. That's how we work on this merry-go-round. Gareth, what would you like to recommend to our lovely listeners?
Okay, so I've got two quick ones.
Go for it.
One is a YouTube channel about comics, which is people have probably heard of, but it's Comic Tropes.
Oh, what's this? Yeah, it's good. This, yeah. It's been going for years, isn't it?
It's been going for a long time, and his conceit when he started was that he'd read a comic, identify the tropes before he started reading, and every time he'd see one, he'd have to do something really awful to himself, like drink a shot of not that.
Oh yeah, he backed away from that. Though,
yeah, it's good that he backed away from that.
Yeah.
I saw one where he was in a hotel in England going, look at what I bought in the shops. These aren't really crisps or something. He did that one. I remember laughing at that one.
He did one
proper English food, and he's like a pint of London Pride.
That's it.
Like, well,
that's right.
Sort of.
Did you see the one where he talked about his time running around with Phoenix Jones?
I haven't watched that one yet because it was an hour long and there's a lot of time to invest. But I will go back to it. Yeah.
There's a real life inverted commas superhero, Phoenix Jones. He was like an MMA fighter, and he used to patrol. I can't think the name of the city.
Chicago, was it? Chicago or Detroit, something like that.
It's basically one of those ones where there was a law of mutual combat that you and someone else, if you agreed to have a street fight, you could do it legally, and the police would watch, but you couldn't take it any further. There was like strict limits on it. They give you like I'm not quite sure on the technicalities of it, but essentially, if two parties agreed to mutual combat on the street, you could engage in it. And they used to go around. Who the
fuck says that in real life? Let's agree to mutual combat.
If you go on YouTube, there's one of his fights where he has a fight with some bloke, and the bloke's had a few drinks, and this Phoenix Jones, like, he knows like some like low turning shin knee kicks, and he just takes the geezer's legs out in 2 kicks, and the guy's out of it. He's just got nothing.
But
spoilers. Like this guy who ran that Comic Tropes used to run with him as a superhero, like for quite a time. Yeah, it's an interesting listen to. Like, you think it's going to be one way, and then he realizes, oh, this is fucking shit, which I'd imagine it would be.
It's a bit more. He tends to sort of grab certain topics, doesn't he? I know that unfortunately YouTubers have got a bit of a bad reputation, haven't they? In regards to comics, it all seems to be a bit clickbaity for them. But this guy actually just does. Oh, well, this week let's talk about Zap comic, or what influence did Claremont have on writing and stuff like that. Tends to do that sort of thing, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So he'll do really well researched like deep dives into particular things. Like there's a really good one about did the editors ruin Hobgoblin, where he goes through the history of editorial on like Hobgoblin and like the backstage drama of why, like how that character got revealed and stuff. That's really good. But then he will do, like, if a film comes out, he'll compare the film to the comics and say whether or not
yes.
But it's just really good.
Yeah. I enjoyed that when he did about what's that really crappy inker that fucked up Kirby stuff?
Coletta.
He did a whole episode on that, and like about Coletta and what he used to do, and because he was a reliable and fast worker. Yeah, they used to like him, but
he was fast because he used to rub out a lot of the backgrounds and stuff. Didn't he?
That's nice, isn't it?
Not a bad inker.
And there's a really good one about whether Bill Mantlo had plagiarized
Barry Windsor Smith.
Barry Windsor Smith. Yeah,
we did one on that. It's a really interesting subject, that, and there's a number of different versions of how he found the script, and Shooter's got one version, and it's really interesting. Yeah, because Monsters, which we obviously read, I think, was it last year, guys? I think we read it, didn't we?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an issue of the Hulk that is basically that, in a way.
But it must have been plagiarized. But just how it was is...
The story goes that the outline or part of the script was left in the office, and there's one story that says Bill Mantlo was going through the drawers and found it. Another one says that Jim Shooter said, "Can someone make something of this?" There's all these different versions about how it came about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I don't know about you guys. I couldn't do that. If I saw an outline for someone else's story, I couldn't lift it like that. Couldn't live with myself.
I mean, it was back in those days. Nobody would, knew really anything about comics, didn't they? It wasn't like, I suppose, these days. Nobody really cared as much as they do now, don't they?
I guess it's a bit of presentism, me fucking judging something happening yesterday by today's things. So
so Comic Tropes is the first one. What's your next one, Gareth?
The next one is sort of borderline a comic, but it's by Tom Murphy, who runs Colossal Press with his wife Jane. I don't know if you know him, but
he's a nice dude. Actually,
Tony,
I like him a lot. Yeah.
And I've known him for a few years through Broken Frontier and LCAF and places like that. Just and then he put out. I did a cartography for him, but he also makes zines in comics himself, and he sort of plays with alternate histories a bit, and that's sort of how he goes about it.
Like is it Croydon Spaceport or whatever it is?
Yeah, Croydon Ad Astra, which tells the real life story of Croydon's space program, where they got like the local grammar school girl to do classes to do the maths required to send a rocket into space. And there's a group of nuns who worked on the space program. So he presents it as real life. And then his latest thing is called The Testing Site, which is it's a hot sort of like a paranormal story which is presented as real. It's about using the lost diaries of a parapsychologist who worked on a secret project for the British government in the 1960s. And the way, it's a great story. It's really atmospheric. It's really well told. But the way that it's being told is through photographs of a place called Scarness, which is on the East Coast. And then each photograph is overlaid with a sheet of tracing paper with a diary entry on it. So it's like, and then it's all held together as big clip, and so it feels like an official document as well as feeling like something else.
That sounds good.
And it's really interesting. It's really atmospheric, really good. And Tom does a really good, because I get a bit funny about people playing with ideas of reality, because I think it's got dangerous, because people will believe any old shit nowadays. Because I think because of like even down to like candid camera and you've been framed and all that sort of stuff, it's sort of worn away people's idea of what reality is, I think, a little bit. But Tom does it in a way which doesn't feel dangerous, because he leaves just enough in it that you know it's fake. So I
do like his stuff, man.
With humor as well.
I like his stuff. I always see him as Gosh and that. And I know Sarah did one, a Colossal Cartography as well, didn't she, recently?
Yeah, she did.
Tim Bird's did one.
Stitch.
Yeah, I'll always go to their website every so often and just see what I'm missing out on. Yeah, they're good. Yeah, good people.
Yeah, and he did the comic called High Precision Ghosts, which is sort of a do-it-yourself ghost story, because they sort of play with bindings and folds and stuff. And High Precision Ghosts is the way that it's been created is that when you open it, you get 3 images, and it's sort of like Fold Mountain, which a couple of you bought. Sort of plays the same idea. So depending on which pages you've got open, you sort of would tell yourself a different story. It's good. So Tom Murphy, and Colossal Press.
Is he part of Broken Frontier? I'm never sure.
He was a reviewer. I don't know if he still is, but he was a reviewer for a long time. I think he's just so busy with Colossal Press now that I don't think he reviews very often for them.
Yeah.
Nice
one, man.
Who wants to go next?
I've got 2. Do you want me to do?
Do you want to go
first and last?
One?
Yeah. So Says Des, Volume 1. We all know about Des Skin, right? One of the, for those that don't, perhaps some of the US people, one of the UK comics' most influential characters. He's known for an awful lot of things actually in the UK comics and at comics adjacent scene. I suppose the thing he's probably started off being well known for was he took over the UK fanzine Fancy Advertiser. I've been reading some of them, the old ones of those today. He gave Dave Gibbons some of his first work in his fanzines, and I think that they became like fast friends. I know there's a story in here about them traveling to America together to try and break in, and I've got a feeling that either Des was Dave's best man or vice versa. I think I was chatting to Dave in the comic shop once. He was telling me about that. They produced Comic-Con. He and a guy called Bram Stokes, I presume that's his proper name, produced a Comic-Con in 1971 at the Waverley Hotel in London. He was the sub-editor at Whizzer and Chips, which is why we just did that game, and also at Core, 2 exclamation marks. I've been reading some of his stuff because he went over and edited the UK version of Mad magazine. He also launched House of Horror, which I think was also called Halls of Horror, House of Hammer. He independently created Starburst, the sci-fi magazine, which has been about for years, and he came back again, didn't it? Not so long ago.
Yeah.
It was a certainly a book, a magazine that I used to read. I probably, when did I first become aware of him? I suppose I was reading his stuff before I became aware of him because I was young. But Doctor Who Weekly, which is where I first started, and you look at some of the work in that, Mike McMahon, Pat Mills, Dave Gibbons, all that stuff in there was just amazing stuff. And I mean, when you think about it, that started in, was it the early 80s, I'm guessing, and it's still running. Doctor Who Monthly is still quite a magazine. 1982 started Quality Communications, and we got stuff like Warrior, V for Vendetta out of that, Marvel Man, all the amazing Bo Jeffries saga, all the amazing stuff that comes in there. He actually had a comic shop in New Cross, which I used to go to. It was on my bus route home from work, and I used to pop in. It was my local comic shop for quite a few years. And then I'm going to say you guys probably best remember him for Comics International. Is that right?
Yeah.
Used to read that. So what he's done is I think a lot of this stuff was on his blog, but what he's done is added to it and created. It's an A4 magazine size, and it's just basically his memoirs of it. But it's full of really good stuff. So there's like letters from publishers offering him a job, old covers, photographs of him with his friends, even girlfriends, even down to like wacky 70s and 80s clothes he was wearing, adverts from the time. There's a load of art you won't have seen, stuff, early Dave Gibbons. There's loads of meetings at editorial, where, you guys don't remember pre-digital photography, but it wasn't often you'd take a picture, but he's got a real wealth of material here that has all gone into it. Down to posters for Comic-Cons, him being on bloody holiday and all this sort of thing. There's a picture called the Buster Boys with all the dudes in suits smoking pipes, sitting around creating the Buster, comic and stuff like that. It's really, really good fun, and it tells the story. There's a lot of anecdotal. If you've ever met Des, I ended up buying some comics of him once and going around his house and collecting them, and ended up, having a lost couple of hours just talking to him about comics. It was brilliant. And him showing me all different stuff. And he's got like a basement full of comics. Occasionally, if you go and buy something like Warrior, or even stuff like Valiant on eBay, it will come from Des. So he's still got he's still working. Hulk comic, remember that? When the series was out? That's there. It's just volume 1. It's 94 pages, perfect bound A4, color and black and white in there. You have to go. I don't think it's on anywhere to buy. I happened across a Facebook post, and you have to go to, it's £17.50 for this, and you have to PayPal Des at DesSkin1, the number one, DesSkin1 at yahoo.co.uk, and add some money for postage and packing depending where you are in the world. And then it appeared through the post like literally 2 or 3 days later as signed Champion Des Skin, which is a phrase he uses quite a lot, I think. It's just one of those things that I'm just glad I've got. I'm a sucker for these books on, how it was and how they started and how they got created. And he does tell it. I think he's a good storyteller, Des. Do you know what I mean? He really is. It's a shame it ends when it does, because I was desperately looking forward to the bit about Warrior and onwards from there as well. But I'm looking forward to volume 2. I messaged him. He's working on a lot of stuff, including some Halls of Horror stuff. And some other stuff, but he says he will be working on volume 2. So I know a lot of people have replied on Facebook saying, when's volume 2 out, Des? When's volume 2 out, Des? Because it's gone down really well. I suggest you try and get your hands on it. I'm not sure how many you had printed, to be fair. So it's DesSkin1 at yahoo.co.uk. Says Des. Brilliant stuff. I had a lost afternoon reading this. Yeah, definitely you need to get it.
Nice. Dan, what would you like to recommend?
I've been doing some reading on Webtoons and doing a bit of research and stuff, and I've currently been let down a couple of times with what I've been reading, kind of like not generally too impressed. And the one I'm going to talk about, I can't say I'm going to recommend it. It's a bit of an odd experience. It's called Zombie Ship by Choi Hae Woo and Choi Insino. I think it's a Korean comic, and the
Okay.
synopsis goes like this. Roberto Hoffman, a Navy SEAL officer, had a loving family and a peaceful life. However, his life takes a sudden turn when zombies appear. After losing his wife and son, Hoffman is left with only his niece, Arya. The two of them hop on the world's biggest cruise ship, Noah, hoping to find a new land of life. Will the ship promise them the hope they're looking for? And you get more from that synopsis there than you can in the comic. It's fucking mental. It's like imagine you were standing on the train platform and like a train went rocketing through the station. You just saw this flicking of kind of like the windows. It's kind of like that. The entire comic is just like action, action, action. All this fucking weird shit happening, and like I'm halfway through I'm at episode 3 of the 6 episodes, thinking, what the fuck is going on? I don't understand any of this. It's just zombies turning up. The man's bitten on his arm. Suddenly he's got like a super arm. He can punch people in the face and make their heads explode. And then there's all these guns, and then there's all these other people turning up. And it's like, what is this? What's going on? I had to reread a couple of episodes twice. So I thought like I was having a stroke or something, because I just didn't get it. And the artwork's fine enough, but the story is just absolute dreck. I just couldn't. It just doesn't appear. It appears to be non-existent. Like one of those comics. Have you ever read a comic where like it's from an indie comic and they've almost made it up as they've gone along, as the page goes along?
Yeah.
But no real idea where it's going. It feels like that. Like they don't know what they're doing from one page to the next. So like near the end of got to 5 or 6, these 2 people turn up who are like supposed to be badasses, and then there's a dead whale on the ship, and they're like, okay, how did this whale get on the ship? Who are these people?
Yeah.
What's this about? And then they start cutting open the whale, and then all these zombies come out the whale, and I'm like, what? Why?
Do you know what? Like, even though, like, what you're saying out loud is like not selling it, by you saying it, I want to read this.
Yeah, go and take a look, man.
I want to know what's going on.
I don't think you're going to find the answers in the comic, Vince. But they all got uploaded March 12th this year, 2022, and it's marked as completed, which I thought I'd just try and look at some of the completed titles on Webtoons to see, like, oh, this is all done, this story. I think it's just where they finished. That was it, and they just called it complete because it's just all over the shop. Anyway, yeah, so that's Zombie Ship.
Nice.
It's Twisted Dan's melon.
Yeah.
I don't know.
My recommendation this week is a book that's I read on Comic House. Nice graphic novel, 120 odd pages. That I read in one. It was in 2 sittings, but I still that was only because I was reading up quite. I could have done it in 1 sitting, but it was quite late and I needed my beauty sleep. So
40 weeks, really.
Yeah. You go have it. You know,
Eddie buys.
That's how I look after this. My skin. Why I stay so young.
It's not the only one.
But no, this is from David Hine and Mark Stafford. This is The Bad, Bad Place. Now, the synopsis for this is: it seems that Faraway Hills, the modern community built on the site of the far, far older Crouch Heath, did not satisfy all the needs of the community. When the Castevet estate reappeared on the edge of town years after it had been demolished, those needs, those urges, those cravings were satisfied. But what price will be exacted by the bad, bad place? Those who may recognise the names of David Hine and Mark Stafford, these 2 creators that did Lip Hook and The Man Who Laughs. And The Man Who
David
Laughs
was on a couple of years ago. He was a great guest, you know.
Yeah.
Really like that dude. Yeah.
Is that when we spoke to him at London Super Comic Con?
But then we got him on to do the writing.
Yes.
Do you know what? I think he's one of the most underrated. He should be writing a load of books. He should be. I think he's great.
Yeah, he should be. And this is a fantastic book. I mean, I'm immediately. I want a proper printed copy of this book, and I'm also going to get Lip Hook and The Man Who Laughs. I think I'm just going to buy all 3 and then just sit down and read them. That's what a good book can do to you, people. But this one is very much. It just ticked all the check boxes for me. That I was like, right, you've got like There's a little bit haunted house. There's eldritch sort of horror. There's Lovecraftian dealings. There's small English town. There's a little bit League of Gentlemen. There's a little bit of everything. There's some serious horror. This is I would say it's there are some wonderful. I mean, Stafford's art is unbelievable. You know, I think I talked about a short he did about I read about two giant monsters meeting.
Yeah, it's in the Scroll Lord's book.
Scroll Lord's book, yeah. I was a sort of fan of his art from there anyway. And
you always see him at Gosh and stuff, and he was at the Satanic Flea Market. We met him there.
Yeah, he's really nice, but nobody draws like him either. I can't think of anybody else who's got a style.
And
he was the artist in residence at the Cartoon Museum, wasn't he?
Yes,
he was. Yeah.
And also, like he the letters and everything on the page is so wonderfully designed. Do you know what I mean? Just the way that everything is laid out and crafted. Every page is a absolute work of art. And some of those works of art will give you nightmares, but in a wonderful kind of way. There's something so wonderfully British about this type of creepy atmosphere that I think Mark can just absolutely capture, and put that together with David's wonderful writing. And this is, I, as always with a lot of these books, I went into it knowing nothing apart from that's a great cover, and it's an entire book I can read in one go. Lovely.
Who put that out again, Vince? Was it Soaring Penguin?
Yeah, Soaring Penguin, I believe, did this one.
Okay.
Yep.
They put a load of stuff on Comic House recently, I think.
Yeah. But this one is a real sort of mystery that plays out. I love the way the story's told as well. There's like a sort of, the house seems pretty much, I mean, the whole town seems pretty empty, apart from this crazy old guy with a beard and a trumpet, or like and someone comes to town. And he's like, "You want to leave? Leave this place. It's cursed." Blah blah blah. And then he essentially tells the story to this person, and then there's twists and turns. To be honest, the twists I didn't see coming. There was some wonderful, and I love those old, because the writing of it as well, the telling of like, this is what happened to the town and this is what happened to that house, is told in such a wonderful sort of literate ghost story. It's like something like someone telling a ghost story around a campfire. That you know when you've read a really good ghost story, and it just sends chills up your spine. But the way that the words are crafted, and the way that every person who falls to this house, or the nightmarish things that happen within this house, you get that sense of sort of terror and the macabre nature of it. But there's also layers, because it's not just that the house is evil and there's motivations, the character motivations, which are quite surprising in some ways. Like, not everything that comes from the bad place is necessarily a bad thing, but what happens to those people may not be great, and which may lead to why the town is the way it is. But I love this. These are two creators who obviously work together on quite a few things, and I'd always see the books and be intrigued by them. But all it takes is one, just dip your toe into the water, and then immediately you're a fan, and
you're in.
Yeah, that was it with this. I mean, and Mark's just shot to one of my favourite artists lists. Just shot right up, completely up there, because I was enjoying looking at the pages, and when I was reading it on Comic House as well, you see the whole page, which I know, I talk about, seeing it panel by panel, but with pages like this, you just got to soak them in all their wonderful glory, because it just works together so beautifully. And then you see, and then when it opens up on a splash page, it will creep you out in a wonderful kind of way. So the bad place. You can read it on Comic House now if you've got a membership, but also get a print copy. I hugely, I'm also
still working on stuff together, aren't they?
Yeah. I'm also a sucker for those sort of horror stories that are like, this house disappeared and now it's back. Do you know what I mean? That sort of idea alone, that something really messed up that disappeared has just returned again. That immediately just gets my. I'm like, oh God, what's going on here? There's got to be.
And what I remember of it is that they managed to make it like a Victorian, like oldie schoolty gothic horror story, but also like really set in the present at the same time.
Yeah,
they somehow do the both.
It's almost there's a certain sort of Edgar Allan Poe alongside like your local council dealing with things.
I've written a letter to ITV asking that they do the comic adaptation of Sapphire and Steel. I think.
Oh, lovely! you should write it, Tony.
Thank you.
Yeah. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and also just the character writing as well. There are certain moments. There's the town council. I recognise those sort of people. Do you know what I mean? There's that sort of like, oh yeah, I know that twat, completely right leaning asshole. It's like, I know people like that. Well, I don't know people like that, but you recognise the people, and I think that's just well written. Just the whole thing's great. Can't recommend it enough. And I know it's a few years old. I think as it says here on Amazon, it says publication was
4 years.
2019.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, but it's never too late to discover something, unless the discovery is, it is a shark beneath us. Then maybe you're in trouble. Anyway, Tony, what's
the whale is full of zombies?
Yeah.
What's
exactly.
this whale doing here? We put this whale in the ship.
Or maybe it's when Dan scrolls down to the penultimate panel on that comic and realise, this story really didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to smash you up.
It didn't go. Yeah. Well, I've sent the link on to you guys now, and
I'm going to read it. I've already been looking through it. Yeah.
Read in inverted commas.
Oh, it looks nice. The art looks nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tony, what's your last one?
So my last one is now. Right, I'm going to be thick here because I've never said this name out loud. Right, Albert Camus. Right, does anyone know? If you look at it, it's Albert Camus. Do we know how it's said?
Yeah, I think it's Camus. Camus.
Yeah, I always thought it was Albert Camus.
Albert Camus. Okay, right. That's what I'm going to go with.
I like the way you said that, Dan.
Yeah, I did as well, actually. It gives you shivers. Yeah. Made me feel funny in my tummy.
I did go through a phase a couple of years ago. I read The Plague, The Stranger, and did he do another one? I can't recall. That's the only two I can remember.
Yeah. The reason I picked this up is because I've literally just bought The Plague, which isn't. I've only started it, but I loved it. And I was in. This book is called The Stranger, incidentally, and I was in a Remainders bookshop in Judd Street, just off Russell Square, yesterday, and it was on sale. It's a big old hardback BD format. It's a translation, and it was £6. So I thought, I'm having that as well. So I read this. I absolutely loved it. It's strange. He's such an interesting writer to me, Dan. Did you like his stuff? Did you?
I was just as soon as I was reading it, I'm getting sucked into this. Like, there's something behind this, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So this is drawn by Jacques Ferrandez, translated by Sandra Smith, originally published in France by Gallimard, who once took me for dinner and paid for my dinner because they believed that I was Sam Arthur's bodyguard, which did make us laugh a lot. The published in English by Pegasus Books. It was just one of those coincidences where I was looking through. There's this Remainders shop I occasionally pop into, they've got this. They never had it before. And it's 128 pages, full colour, oversized. As we all know, Albert Camus was an Algerian-born French language philosopher and novelist. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature. It just aged 44 in 1957. So it's, he's not a new writer. This actually does take place in and around Algiers, which at the time was a French colony in Algeria. It follows a man called Meursault. He is, as I know we had a quick chat about this, Dan, before, and he's one of these sort of cold and emotionless young men who you mostly read about in Russian fiction, but appears in here as well. He's fairly unhappy with his life, and he declares often that things don't really matter to him. He doesn't. It doesn't really matter to me. The general story concerns his life, and he's one of these characters who we see in a lot of fiction, who's just sort of blown about by the events that surround him. Really, he's just carried along by what happens. except for one very decisive moment, which happens in the last third of this graphic novel. Starts off with it opens with his mum. She's died, and he has to attend the funeral. He sort of wanders off to the funeral. Doesn't really want to do anything that anyone tells him. They have the funeral, then he goes swimming, and he meets this girl, becomes entangled in sort of a relationship with her, sleeps with her, and she says to him, "Oh, I love you," and he says, "Well, I don't really think things like that." He's just one of these sort of blokes. He's just there's no. You'd look at him and think there's no real depth. He's very Kafkaesque. If you look at something like The Trial, he's almost like this character who's just pushed through the story. Things happen to him. He's really interesting. He's not an everyman because he's not like everybody. He's just this sort of fucking idiot, really. But the all the way through it, he makes these sort of casual choices that, in reality, actually come up to bite him in the arse during a trial that happens. And he's got this neighbour of his, who's called Raymond, who's a bit of a thug, beats his girlfriend up. The attitudes towards domestic abuse were clearly different in Albert Camus' time. And it escalates. I'm going to ruin this 91-year-old novel, by the way. With him just out of the blue, he happens to be walking along the beach, sees one of the people that his friend Albert is having a feud with, and he kills him, shoots him 5 times. And the last third of the book is all about this trial. But because it has an element of satire, a large element is satire, the trial isn't about the actual act of him shooting someone. It's about how the fact that he doesn't really have any emotions, and he does stuff like on the day of his funeral, he goes swimming and sleeps with a girl, and he doesn't care about things. And it gets like the trial, like with Kathy, it takes over this sort of really strange mood, and he's wholly belligerent throughout it, but at the same time, ignorant, casual, and very unlikable. Throughout it, Camus takes and uses the ongoing story, to take satirical shots at life, not just at the time, but just wider subjects. So relationships, family, courts, and then you get this thing. He talks about gang violence, how people can spring to violence, how they don't see it as impactful on their lives. But also, he does a really big thing towards the end about the reason and the existence of religion and whether it matters. And of course, Meursault is just so casual and offhand about everything. And the priest is saying to him, at the end of it, he's going to be executed. So he gets found guilty in this trial. And he said the priest has gone to see him, and he says, "Well, doesn't really mean things, does it?" He just sort of sits there. And the priest gets really angry with him and says, "Well, it might do, why, and he ends up having a fight with the priest in the cell. It's really interesting. Throughout the whole thing, you sit there reading it thinking, where is this going? I don't know what is happening here. Why is this going this way? Because it doesn't play to any of the cliches that we see these days in every movie and TV, seemingly, that ever turns up on television or at the cinema, where you can almost guess what the ending's going to be. He's going to end up with that girl. He's going to win the fight. Yeah. It's not predictable in any sort of way. The art, it has almost like a watercolor over a thick ink line look to it. Does anyone know Warren Pleece, the artist Warren Pleece? He did some stuff at Vertigo, did Montague Yeah, very similar to that, actually. Reminded me a little bit of his work. The writing is brilliant. I know it's an adaptation, but the writing of it is also very good, and I think the translation works as well because she's had to show this coldness to him, this unfeelingness to him, and the way he's blown through life. I was trying to think what it reminded me of. And it reminds me of the movies of Lindsay Anderson. Has anyone ever seen any of those films? He did Britannia Hospital, Oh Lucky Man.
No.
If he does those sort of strange films that, the people in them are victims of circumstance almost. But I really enjoyed it, I have to say. Another piece of French and Belgian comics that we're sadly missing here, and it would make... I don't know why nobody's heard about it. I never heard that. This book came out 3 or 4 years ago, and I'd never heard about it. But it's sitting there on a shelf in a Remainders bookshop in Judd Street. So if you are in anywhere near Russell Square, walking your way through to Euston or St Pancras, as I was, then pop into Judd Books. All the comics are on the left as you go in, and there's loads of great stuff in there. It only cost me £6. So that's mine, and it's called The Stranger. There you go.
Nice. I've after seeing the people posting up in the Slack group that they've done these charity shop runs and just found all this stuff. Yeah. I'm taking it upon myself now. Every Saturday I want to go down to the charity shops near me, because there's a number of really good ones, and just see if they've got any comics or books that are good.
Yeah, there's a great one near me because it's slowed down a bit in there, but they used to have like a stack of stuff from Barry Tomlinson in there. And you used to be able to go in there and get loads of like big piles of British weeklies from the 70s and stuff. It was great, yeah. Yeah, and I often put my head in a couple in the village. Yeah.
My mother-in-law used to work in a charity shop and a couple of years ago, and she used to ring me up and say, "We've got these books. Do you want them?" And it's like, "Oh, Batman this." Oh, yeah. Though obviously the wife would find out, so it was sort of there'd be issues there.
Yeah. She hasn't found out you do a podcast yet about comics, has she?
Yeah, I get to hear about that every week, Vince. So you're not doing your podcast tonight? Well, I've been doing it for about 5 yees. Yes,
7 years.
7 years.
She thinks it's 5. She thinks it's 5. But it has been more than that, and thank you very much for joining us for all those time, all the lovely loyal listeners. And thank you for listening to this week's show. Loads of fantastic books for you to check out there, and lots of stuff to find out more about. And if you want us to talk about any other things like, I don't know, comics crowdfunding, comics processes, comics whatever, then there's several different ways you can get in touch with us. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @theawesomepod. If you do the Book of Faces, go. It's the end of the night.
Yeah, keep going, Vic.
Yeah. Thanks.
Through.
If you're on Facebook, go to facebook.com/awesomecomicspodcast. There's also a great community group on there called Awesome Comics Talk, which you could sign up for. Plus, join the Awesome Comics Podcast Slack group.
What's happening?
Which has loads of channels and lots of things.
I bought some comics off there today.
Processes, people selling books, etc., etc. Loads of different avenues to get more of what you love. And if you listen to this show, you love comics. End of. And yes, thank you for listening to us, whether it was on the website, awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe and leave a review. I don't think we've had a review in years.
Didn't we get one about 3 months ago?
Did we?
We hadn't noticed it.
I haven't done that shameless looking on the internet for our podcast for a while. No, I occasionally do. Of course I do. We all do that. If you do something, don't lie
Barry
to me.
Cheeseman's leaving another review.
Yeah, don't lie to me and say you don't Google your own podcast and see how well they're doing. Anyway, but if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe to the show because it helps get the word out about the comics that we talk about every week and the fantastic creators like Gareth that you may not have known about before. If you listen to us on any other networks like Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife, what other networks are we on, Tony?
They're on Pod, probably plays the clarinet.
Beautiful.
It was going to be Pod Kentucky Plug, but I didn't do that.
No, let's not go down that route again. But where can people find us online, etc.? Tony?
Neverownanything.com for all your needs.
There we go. Dan?
You can find me on Patreon, patreon.com/Vanguard Comic. Go check him out there.
Nice. You can find me on social media @JesterDiablo. And thank you again to Gareth Hopkins. What an absolute legend. You can see why we love him so much. But where can people find you and your work, Gareth?
So what people need to remember is Gerthink is spelled GRTHINK. And then they can either go to Twitter with that or Instagram with that or Patreon with that. And it's me. So Gerthink, GRTHINK.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Have you got business cards with that on?
I do. Yeah.
But it's all written in abstract.
Yeah.
No, I chopped up a really big picture I did because I didn't like it anymore and just wrote Gerthink on the back of all of them. So
yeah, that tracks. We're gonna go off and read some more comments. So thank you very much for listening, everyone. We hope you have a brilliant week, no matter where you are in the world.
You may enjoy next week's. We're not going to say anything yet, but something might be happening.
It's not next week.
Yeah.
Do we need to watch out for it? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's a week after next.
It's a week after. God,
yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Well, you should look forward to every week because we're going to be talking about comics and have the same nonsense. There won't be a Whizzer and Chips quiz every week, so don't get too excited. If only.
Whizzer or Wazzer.
But until then, we love you, don't we, Dan?
Hell yeah.
Gareth, do you love the listeners?
Some of them.
Yeah. Tony, do you love any of them?
One of them.
There you go. Who is it?
Does Marina Sirtis listen?
Of course she does.
Yeah, I love her.
Jane McDonald does. I've private messaged her and let her know to listen.
She never pays any attention to our messages. So
shout out to you, Jane. Keep doing what you're doing. And while you're doing that, the rest of us will be reading comics. So thank you very much for listening from Dan, Tony, Gareth, and myself. Have a brilliant week. Read loads of comics. Make loads of comics. Introduce one of your mates to a comic that you know that they'll really like. And as always, what should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
Thank you, Gareth. Thank you, Gareth. That was. He's always got to have the last word, haven't you, Gareth?
It's always got to be different, hasn't he?
I just tried to make it as snappy as possible, I think.
Do you know what show you're on? Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.